And if I fall, I'm just dangling from the basket. Is that how that works?
For about 9 feet.
It's about to get high.
Welcome to the world's largest collection of military aircraft.
This is the oldest intact aircraft. Crashed in the early 1970s.
Spread across 2,600 acres of Arizona desert, the Boneyard here at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is a treasure trove of over 3,000 aircraft, each one a chapter in the story of aviation spanning almost 80 years.
So even being 45 years old, like the parts are still intact?
A lot of them, yeah.
Now you might assume that this is the final resting place for old retired airplanes, but in reality, the Boneyard plays a much more crucial role for the United States military than just that. Year-round, a team of over 800 mechanics assigned to the 309th Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Group work around the clock to store, preserve, and repurpose these planes, sometimes even giving them a second chance at life. Today, I have the privilege of taking you on a behind-the-scenes journey to get an up-close look at the meticulous restoration and regeneration that takes place here at the Boneyard. I'll even be suiting up myself to experience the intense process of preparing aircraft for long-term storage in the scorching heat.
It's only getting warmer, let's go!
But our adventure actually begins here, in a van, at an area known as Celebrity Row, where some of the Boneyard's most iconic aircraft are put on display.
This is the oldest intact aircraft that we've got. It was authorized for construction in 1952, probably finished 1953. It's an EB-57 Canberra. Now you might say, why would you save this? This thing is, nobody's flying it anymore except NASA, who flies 3 WB-57s, and as is often the case, we're the only source of spare parts for those NASA WB-57s, and this guy is one of them.
So LC-130, right?
Correct, absolutely. These airplanes were designed to land on the snow and ice down in Antarctica, and that's why the skis are underneath them. This particular airplane crashed in the early 1970s because of a rocket-assisted takeoff system that broke loose and damaged the engine. It sat down there for 17 years. Navy went down and said, we want this back, dug it out, put a new engine on it, flew it back 850 miles to McMurdo, flew it for another 10 years after some repairs, and then retired it here to the nice warm sun of Tucson, Arizona. And eventually it was turned over to the National Science Foundation. Well, this is one of the iconic aircraft that we've got out here, the B-52. There's better than 90 of them, both G models, mostly G models, and then a few H models that are across the way there. This particular G model was an aircraft that complied with the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. So those were treaties between the United States and the former Soviet Union, and now between the United States and Russia, that limited the number of nuclear delivery platforms, and B-52 had that capability at the time. So the airplanes had to be cut to take the nose off, take the tail off, and take the wings off and lay the wings back at this angle that you see the wings are laying in. And that way they could be, when the satellites went over, they could verify that this airplane had been eliminated. Not destroyed, that means shredded and gone, but eliminated so it can never fly again. Still provides parts. There are parts on these G models that are usable on the H model that we fly today, and so we continue to reclaim parts to keep the H models flying.
Now, stepping away from the Boneyard, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, BetterHelp. BetterHelp was founded in 2013 to remove the traditional barriers to therapy and make mental health care more accessible to everyone. Today, it's the world's largest therapy service, providing professional, affordable, and personalized therapy in a convenient online format. BetterHelp's network of over 30,000 licensed therapists has helped millions of people take ownership of their mental health and work towards their personal goals. It lets you match with a therapist wherever you are, and because of how many different options there are, it's much easier for people to match with a therapist and switch to a new one if it doesn't seem like the right fit. And you can do this as many times as you need to. BetterHelp also has a clinical team and a rigorous vetting process in place to make sure therapists meet the licensing and experience requirements, and they also have a customer success team that you can reach out to with any questions or concerns that come up during your sessions. BetterHelp has over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, and there's a reason 4 million people have turned to BetterHelp for mental health support. Now you can use my link, betterhelp.com/Sam Eckholm, or use Sam Eckholm at signup to receive a discount on your first month with BetterHelp. And with that, let's get back to the Boneyard. Now you might be wondering how often an aircraft is brought back to life and resurrected from the Boneyard. And the answer is that it's actually more common than you might think. For example, back in 2016, the United States Marine Corps announced plans to refurbish 23 F-18 Hornets from the Boneyard to address an aircraft shortage they were dealing with. More recently, in 2020, a 55-year-old B-52 Stratofortress was also pulled from the Boneyard and brought back to flying status over a nearly year-long restoration process. And then in 2023, a B-1 bomber was also regenerated in just 64 days.
Okay, so it's gonna go on just like a regular, any other harness?
And if I fall, I'm just dangling from the basket. Is that how that
For
works?
about 9 feet.
Yeah, this view's about to be insane.
Don't think about it. Just think you're on a...
I'm not thinking about it. I'm just kidding. I'm only thinking about it, to be honest.
Right now, I'm 80 feet high, standing above the tail of one of my all-time favorite aircraft, the C-5 Galaxy. Now, if you look around, you can see that the Boneyard actually stores 57 C-5s, and behind that, you can see the miles and miles of other aircraft, all with their own unique story to be told. Now, with an aircraft as large as the C-5, you can only imagine how many spare parts there are on a platform like this, and over the years, thousands upon thousands of parts have been pulled from the Boneyard and repurposed onto other aircraft, a process known as reclamation. Now, one thing I was curious about is, what is the process for when an aircraft comes to the Boneyard? It's not like they just land and then immediately get towed out to their resting spot here in the desert. In reality, there's actually a step-by-step process for preparing an aircraft for long-term storage. And that is exactly what we're gonna check out next.
Light on, fuel breaker in.
So this aircraft actually arrived Thursday of last week. The aircrew brought it in from Travis. So the first step in our process is the flush farm. That's where the aircraft is right now. That's the first step in the process. We took off the JP8. We put on 1010 preservative oil. It is now ready to go in what we call a preservation run. So then we'll run the engines. We'll run it for about 5 minutes each engine so everything gets preserved. And that way then that preservation process is over at that point.
So something I didn't know is you guys are all civilians or contractors, but you're qualified to know how to run the engines on how many different aircraft?
Right now we have about 6 different airframes that are coming in on a regular basis. But there's guys out here like Mr. Lovejoy, myself, and another guy inside 15 to 18. Wow. But for the most part, a lot of us have been to schools, engine run schools, the same as the military guys go to. And so we're fully qualified to run anywhere from 3 to 15 aircraft at a time.
After the aircraft is fully flushed out, the next step in the preparation is in an area called the wash rack. Here the aircraft is given a full scrub down, sort of like a car wash except for airplanes. The washing is especially important for aircraft that have served aboard aircraft carriers or in a tropical location where they were subject to the corrosive effects of warm, salty air. Now you guys know me by this point, I'm always looking for the opportunity to get my hands dirty, which in this case meant putting on the waders, grabbing a hose, and giving this A-10 Warthog a good old-fashioned scrubbing.
All right, how do I look? Rate my fit. In the comments right now, rate my fit.
All right, Sam, so we're doing a aircraft wash on this A-10. I'm gonna have you wash this front half of the fuselage right here. So we got your soap bucket for you. We got a hose for you. Put some soap on there, clean it.
Whoops.
Turn the nozzle.
Turn it here?
Other way. Yep.
Oh, wow, whoa. Just like that?
Yep. Rinse up to the front a little bit.
So this is an A-10, but
yeah.
I imagine something like a C-5 is going to be a lot more annoying to wash.
Yes.
A lot more people.
It's the same amount of people, but it takes a lot longer. It can take 2 days sometimes. It's just more aircraft. I mean, you get an F-16 or an A-10, it's super easy, but you get a big aircraft and it takes a while.
I'm gonna lock back in.
It's only getting warmer, let's go!
All right, wash complete. Let's see what's next.
The next step is to seal the aircraft from dust, sunlight, and high temperatures. This is done through a 2-step process. The first layer is made using a black spray that seals off the aircraft, and the second is made using a white coating to help reflect the sunlight and keep the aircraft at a much more reasonable temperature, usually within 15 degrees of the outside ambient air.
So normally this is the 7-barrel Gallade Avenger. Everyone knows it's iconic on the A-10. You guys covered it up with this cardboard. Why is that?
So we don't want any insects or bugs to get inside here. We don't want any birds because we don't want any damage to this gun in any way, shape, or form. Whether it's weather with rust or any kind of corrosion in that aspect, Or if a bird's sitting on it and there's droppings, and we don't want any corrosion in that way, or any insects to get inside. And then if we have reclamation come outside and try to pull the barrels off and there's bees in there, you don't want them to get stung.
That'd be bad.
So we cover it up completely, so that gun is 100% protected for the entire life that it's sitting out here.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna spray in a horizontal pattern first, side to side.
Side to side.
And then we're gonna do a vertical, up and down.
Up and down.
So when you go to squeeze the trigger, you're gonna wanna squeeze nice and slow so you start seeing your texture pattern. You can get a little bit closer.
Right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Start spraying it. No, you can't spray all gung-ho. Let's see.
That was bad.
Really, it was spraying fine earlier. This is embarrassing.
There we go.
There.
I see, okay.
There you go, now you're getting a good texture. That's what you want right there.
It's crazy, it's like it's slight press and it just like whoosh.
Yeah, so
that was
a booger that got stuck and
yeah,
then it gave away and then it blew. You got all that influx of paint behind it. Nice even stroke. Got your 12.
Okay.
You hit your mills. He's certified now.
So at this point, we've seen how the aircraft's engines are flushed, thoroughly washed from front to back, and spray seal applied with both black and white paint. Meaning at this point, the last step is to hook the aircraft up to a tow and bring it out to its resting spot in the boneyard. Now for some aircraft, that might just be a few years, and for others, decades. It all depends on the specific type category that's applied to it and the needs of the Department of Defense. Now, one of the other unique missions performed here at the Boneyard involves upgrading older aircraft like F-16s with the latest and greatest hardware and software. It's a term the military calls depot-level maintenance, and I had the opportunity to walk around several of the hangars here to see it in action. But once the upgrades are complete, the final step in the process involves a test flight, performed by a test pilot. A job I think must be one of the coolest in the world.
You're the chief test pilot for doing functional check flights on aircraft that we generate out of the boneyard for either maintenance upgrades, avionics upgrades, or even regeneration for the QF drone program. So we'll do a zoom climb, so we're about 600 miles an hour. At the end of the runway, we'll go straight up over the field, make sure that the systems are working normally, and then from there, we'll go out to an airspace that's just south of here, and then do all the checks of the jet. So we'll check the pressurization, the fuel, we'll check the engine from idle to mill to full afterburner. We'll go from full afterburner to idle, back to full afterburner to kind of stress out the motor through the whole operating envelope. We'll do that at different altitudes. We'll go up to 30,000, we'll go up to 40,000. It's a lot of fun. You basically fly all the motors, all the flight control systems, kind of the latest and greatest in weapons and technology, and all the way back to the oldest stuff. And it can all happen within the same day.
We've reclaimed over 9,000 parts off of these aircraft, and this is very significant because once we submit those back into the supply system, those parts are used to make aircraft that are currently grounded flyable again.
All right, Scott, so what are we looking at here and what are you guys doing?
Well, looking at an F-15C model, we got an order for the main fuel line, and we're going to pull one from each side.
And are these then going to go where, like a current F-15 flying? Is that the end goal?
Yeah, either an actual we do warfighter support where it goes directly to an aircraft that's, say, deployed downrange somewhere, or it can go to the depot where they do the heavy maintenance. If there's none in supply, that's where we come in, and we come out here to our parts warehouse and grab one.
Some of these parts can only be found here at AMARG due to diminished manufacturing sources or production lines that are no longer in existence.
So even being 45 years old, like the parts are still intact and can be reused and put on another airplane?
A lot of them, yeah. Not everything is compatible with the newer F-15, like say, Strike Eagle, but a lot of them are common.
Once the aircraft parts have been successfully pulled from the old frames, they then move to an area known as the reclamation line. Here the parts are processed, sorted, and cleaned before being packaged up and shipped out the door. So if you had to put a price on all of the parts that come in each year, do you have a number?
Oh yes, I do.
What is it?
Last year, FY23 was $454 million with an M, $million.
Wow.
And that was over 9,000 parts. We're projecting in 2024 probably going to hit 10,000 parts, and we don't know how much that's going to tally out to.
So what if the part's too big? Because this works well with this size part, but you know, I imagine parts get a lot bigger. What do you do?
Two different places where we bring the parts in. If it's a huge part, it goes to the wash rack. People have seen the aircraft wash, parts are washed there as well. Then it's forklifted over to the wood mill, where they build a crate for it. And then the crates are brought to the end of this facility, so the small parts and the large parts go out on the same trucks.
At this point, after our verify, tag, inspect, the part comes down the line. We base it off priorities, so our priority bins filter down that line down there. Our other ones filter down this line this way. And then it comes through here. Our work lead over in that direction actually filters the bins out, as you can see here. He filters them through each packer. They get the parts, they begin packing, get everything situated, and then it moves on to ship. All right, so once the parts get packed, everything comes to our shipping portion. This is the last step of the game. We have our small package carriers that come and pick up every day, UPS, FedEx. 87% we meet for our small package, same day pack, same day ship. All of our larger items that get packed from wood mill get staged here. Those go out the door as well.
So what happens if you have a super large part? Like, will you ever have an Air Force C-17 or like a C-5 come and take them?
Sometimes we have. We have fixtures that get cut where we put on AMC jets, C-17, C-5s, so we stage those. Those will get staged here typically, so yes.
And this is the last stage, so after this they go out to their active duty base or guard or unit to be installed on an aircraft and
yes,
keep flying for the next decade or
hopefully.
So. You know, the one thing I keep thinking about after spending the day here at the Boneyard is how much I wish these aircraft could speak. I know, it sounds weird, but just imagine the stories they could tell of their decades of service flying missions all around the world. It'd be pretty incredible, and it's a conversation I wish I could have. But what is so special and so vital is the work being done here by the 309th AMARG to ensure that these aircraft don't go forgotten and can continue to be reused and repurposed depending on whatever decision ultimately is made. Well, that's pretty much it from here at the Davis-Monthan Boneyard. I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you next time.